all right, everyone. This is the David Washington Show. I'm your host, David Washington, your political innovator here at JM Washington. And today I have a very special guest with me, Robert Prater. He is an Orange County school teacher. He is also an aide to Florida State Representative Susan Placencia, and he is a former Florida State Representative candidate. So, Rob, if you're okay with that, I'd like to introduce you to the David Washington Show and its audience. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I love doing these. I love reaching out to the community and seeing what everybody's thinking about all of the current situations, even with the schools, with politics. It kind of what fires a lot of people up. And although this election cycle, we haven't seen much of that. I've talked to people in other states, and it seems like that's the pulse of the nation. That up until these recent events, nobody was really talking about politics for the next election, and weren't really happy with either presidential candidate on a whole. I mean, you've got your base for both candidates, and you got your polls, and what people think, but. You and I have discussed polls so much. It's not even funny. And numbers seem to have a way of just kind of why they call them variables. I'm a math teacher first, so
Right.
They move. So
Indeed,
fire
you're
away.
right. Let's start, nationally and bring it back to local. For the last 4 weeks, it's been a very unique time in political history, starting with the debate between former President Trump and current President Biden, and where we are today with a brand new nominee for the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris.
Yeah. When you go back to the debate, at first, in politics, there's ploys, there's timing and how you want to try to get the sense of your audience, your voter. And at first I thought that's what it was. And as time has gone on, I realized he's really unfit. I mean, there's no other way of wording it. I mean, we can't, sometimes you just can't sugarcoat something when it's right there in front of you, and your own political party is saying, listen, you're not going to be able to do this job for another 4 years. I don't even know if he could do it for another 5 months. But that's now what is being debated, is if he's not running for re-election, should he be there? And I said from day one that, for this process to stay out of the courts and to be a smooth transition, they should have invoked the 25th Amendment. That's what it's there for. It doesn't make him, a bad president. It doesn't hurt his legacy. It is what it is. And it's everybody sees it. It's not like, oh, where did this come from? And I mean, 9 times or maybe 10, we've had our president replaced by its vice president. 4 by assassination, 4 times they have died. One was resigned, pretty much should have been impeached. And I believe back in the 1800s, was it Johnson might have been impeached. So
Correct.
So 10 times the VP has had to take over. And, and this is one of the reasons why they pick certain VPs, to make sure that if an event happens, that person can step in and take over, and it's a smooth transition. I mean, it was very evident, his state, and you couldn't help but feel sorry. I mean,
Sure.
Some of the words were just you couldn't understand them. And honestly, I mean, with Donald Trump's history, I thought he let him off the hook big time. I mean, he could have.
I agree.
Easily said, "Hey, is he having a stroke? Like this? Do we need a doctor here?" I mean, it was that bad. I mean, again, it's one of those things. Sometimes someone has to just tell the truth.
Right. I saw it as a moment where you see two old warriors going at it, one more time. Two, aging boxers, for instance,
Mm,
going at it, and then one just looking and say, "Hey, this isn't right.
right.
This is not the time for this." And
Yeah.
going back to what you were saying about evoking the 25th Amendment, I suggested, and I'm sure I'm not alone, that Biden should resign immediately. If he is unable to run for reelection, then give Vice President Harris an opportunity to show some leadership
Mm,
to the American people right now and resign and allow her ascend to the presidency.
yeah.
I believe that would empower her campaign,
Yeah.
and that would put some some more steam or more air behind
Well,
her.
it'll allow her to pick her VP now, whereas technically and legally, she has to wait until the convention to pick her VP until the delegates choose her to be the official nominee. But
Mhm.
because, like right now, like I said, I mean, wording is everything. I mean, when we all know the shall and the thou, and I'm not a lawyer or anything by any means, but that's just basic legal stuff. And, so the wording, like right now, they're going around and they're saying, she's their presidential nominee, and they should be using the word going to be their presidential nominee. You're opening up the door. I mean, it's almost like you're baiting the Republicans to file lawsuits. I mean, I know it was stated in the Sunday talk shows by the speaker that, because
Right.
every state has different election laws, whether or not she's going to even be allowed to be on the ballot. And so that's why if the 25th was invoked and he's gone, he's incapacitated to doing the job or unfit. There's a number of ways. Health terminology, I'm sure, can be used. You want to show respect, but it would just make this transition much easier and less controversial. We can get on to doing the business, of America. I mean, we got a lot
Correct.
of enemies out there. They're all watching. Like,
Correct.
America may help a lot of countries. I think there's like 60 countries that we send foreign aid to, but there's over 200 countries in the world, and there's a number of them that hate us, and so we have to be on alert at all times. And
I agree. I mean, we have the October 7th war in Israel and Gaza, of course, the Ukrainian war. There's different conflicts across the globe. I want to know that America is in good hands with a President Kamala Harris before the election. And I have no horse in this race at all. As a Politico, I'm just looking at how things play out as a big fan of politics. And I can tell you, I was very disappointed and that Biden stepped down or stepped away from the his candidacy. I I felt betrayed and abandoned, and I've heard those words echoed because I truly believe that he was the candidate that could beat Donald Trump, and that he would give Trump a run
well, he
for his
did.
money.
You're right, because he
Mhm.
already did, and that was his argument
Exactly,
all along. Look, I already beat him
exactly,
once, and typically that's how precedent works. I mean,
right.
I had an opportunity to run for the state legislature a second time, and those were some of the things to consider. The candidate I would have run against, I had already lost to him, and so we chose to go a different path, and
Mhm.
so it isn't. But I'll tell you one of the things that I've learned, because you're learning all the time as a political aide and as a political consultant, that people don't like to be told what to do. We saw that even here at the local level with a special election not long ago, when
Right.
when the party was sending out mailers and trying to tell people how to vote, even within their own party. They don't like to be told. They don't want to be told what to do. Um, and basically, that's what you're doing right now. A lot of people are there. They voted for him, They expected him to be their candidate,
Correct.
and so it may, but on the other hand, I know that they're really more concerned about the down ballot races, the Senate seat, holding on to the House, holding on to the Senate. Um, you know, it's so there's a lot of moving pieces here that uh, you would people. Hopefully, people will get engaged and do some homework now and see how they want the country to run for the next 4 years. Because come 2028, we've talked about this. You've got an open presidential seat,
Yeah.
which is, I'm really looking forward to, and you'll see as
Yeah.
soon as this election's over, there's going to be people already lining up,
That's correct.
as what we call the whispers. Linda Stewart just did it not too long ago. I heard her name for about 6 months. She's going to run for county commission, and sure enough, there it is. She's running, and I've got more text messages on who you're going to vote for because I live in that district.
Right.
And
I saw to transition before we transition to local politics. One more thing about this, as it's been not reported, but it was in the headline of the New York Times, the daily podcast, the coordination of Kamala Harris. The Democrats changed their primary system for President Biden. Instead of making Iowa the first for the caucus and primaries in New Hampshire, they changed it to South Carolina. The Florida
and that didn't sit well with me because,
Mhm.
the
Florida Democratic Party canceled their primary for the
because
Democrats.
if you remember back in 2008, and again, I don't want to sound like a nerd or anything, that I remember all this, but in 2008, Michigan and Florida changed their election date for their primary.
Mhm.
And then the DNC come out and said, "Oh, we're not counting your delegates." And you had Donna
Yes.
Brazile coming out saying, "Florida or Michigan cheated." And I was like, "I didn't change the date. I didn't cheat." And so
Right.
it didn't sit well with me. And I started reviewing both parties and where I wanted to go to as into my senior years of living. And so I ended up switching parties over it, based on a lot of her comments that really made me look at this, the landscape of politics. So it can be very detrimental.
Sure, indeed, and we'll see how this plays out. There's still discussion about an open convention, a closed convention. It reported today that Vice President Harris has enough delegates now. People have just fallen in line, and I was just reading some of the comments to this podcast this morning. How people again are supporters to say, "Hey, wait a second, wait, we didn't get a voice in this. We had primaries. We want to hear from other people. Can we at least have a debate?" So there's some already some resistance by some Democrats.
Yeah, but it won't get any traction. I don't believe. One thing about the primary and even the local, only about 30% of the people vote, and and even out of that, you're below the 20% mark on what we call our super voters, that come out every primary, every general election, every special election, municipality, you name it. They're we need to vote. I'm coming. So that number is below 20%. So could that make a difference in an election? Absolutely. I mean,
definitely.
We've seen some, the speaker that just left here in Florida, he lost his first, or I want to say his first election by 2 votes.
Mm-hmm.
And Speaker Reiner. And so they did a recount, even though he said, no, 1 vote is all you got to lose by. And they did the recount because it's by law you have to. And he ended up by 2 votes. So, we've had a lot of people question our election supervisors throughout the state. And I'll tell you right now, that one came right on the money. And a few things moved around, but nothing that made a difference.
Right. So you mentioned the local county commissioner race, District 3. We have Gus Martinez.
Yeah.
Even though this is nonpartisan, it for all purposes, yes, people know who the
Right.
Democrat is, who the Republican is, and third party, whatever. But we have Gus Martinez, a Republican, and then two Democrats, Linda Stewart, currently the a Florida state senator who is termed out, and
Mhm.
former county commissioner, District 3 county commissioner, and then current county commissioner, Myra Uribe. And wow, I was listening in to the local Democrats executive meeting last night and listened to the two candidates, Commissioner Uribe and Senator Stewart, just present to the membership, and to see them in the same room was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is a tense campaign.
Yeah. This is one of those situations where uh, if I'm Gus Martinez, I'm going to the Republican Party and saying, listen, these two are going to split the vote.
Yeah,
I could come in here, pick up all the Republican vote and NPA vote, and I could steal this election. And because these two are going to split that vote.
yes, they are.
Um, yep. I mean, you have your Hispanic vote, and then you have someone who's done an outstanding job, and Linda Stewart. I mean,
Mhm.
Representative Placencia, went to her and did some bills through her.
Right.
And and we know Representative Placencia is a Republican, and uh, Senator Stewart is a Democrat. So you can
Right.
see working across aisles and getting things done for the Central Florida area. I don't know if the future is going to hold that, true with Mr. Smith going into that seat unopposed, which is another story that might take another whole show. But
That's a whole different story. And now that the fanfare is over, now what? Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith is, campaigning with other Democrats, and trying to help them fundraise and things like that. However, with Commissioner Stewart, when I was listening in, she was talking about how she is being vilified for having the support of Republicans, of Visit Orlando, of the
yeah,
Central Florida.
that's the funny part about politics. It's like,
Yeah,
you want to tell the voters, listen, I can reach across the aisle and get things done. It's the only way you're going to get things done in Florida. Republicans have the majority control in the House and in the Senate. So the only way you're going to get bills passed and get appropriations, so forth, is to work with the Republicans, and she's been able to do that. So I have all the respect for her. I mean, as far as the current commissioner, um, you know, my sidewalks are so bad out front, it's not even funny. So, who do you think I would vote for if I had to? I want someone that's
right,
going to get
right,
something done. So, but this is what's funny. Like right now, they were calling Joe Biden old. That just to flip back up to that issue, and now he's dropped out of the race. So, they kept telling the Republicans, oh, you can't call him old. He's experienced. He's done a great job and this or that.
sure,
Okay. And now Donald Trump's the oldest one. And now they're calling him old. Wait a minute. You just told
yeah,
us we couldn't do that. So
that's
that's how
right,
politics works. And, and that's why I say, hopefully the voters do their homework. I mean, if you look at gas prices when President Obama was in office, they were just as high, if not higher, $4
right,
a gallon.
right,
Joe Biden's back in office. I mean, so you got to understand the branches that come off the tree trunk, if you want to look at it that way, and the effects. I mean, if you want a Democrat in the White House, this is what you're going to get. I mean, you're going to get higher interest rates. You're going to get higher gas prices. And if that's just how it is.
yeah,
If you want a Republican in office, well, you're going to get people that say some crazy things at time from time, and more than they should.
Right.
But gas prices are going to go down, and hopefully the trickle, the ripple effect, food will go down and taxes will go down. But so the programs, they end up being less because you got to pay for them. So you just there's this choice that you have to make, and how much what you want to allow, or what you accept, or what you believe. Um, and those are the choices that you have.
You mentioned now State Senator elect Carlos Guillermo Smith. Um, at the state level, the Republican Party has dominated.
Mhm.
And as recently as this last session, they had supermajorities. And of course, the governor's house with Governor Ron DeSantis. Are you expecting the Republicans to replicate their dominance in this election
Um,
at the state level?
oh yes, absolutely. I mean, it's there's no reason to believe that. I mean, even if the Democrats could pick up a couple of seats, that's whether or not we maintain the supermajority. Um, all indications are yes, but again, polling is funny. I mean, if you are a smart enough candidate, oh, you just get the vote out. You know,
Exactly. That's
I,
it.
I have people call me all the time, and being a math teacher, I do a lot of data for a lot of candidates, and I'm like, look, I mean, any seat's a winnable seat. They go, well, not according to the numbers. I go, well, first off, you're just looking at the whole overall picture. You got to look at likely voters, and then if they're not likely voters, go knock on their door and say, hey, I need you to come out and vote for me.
Yeah.
Send them an email, send them a text message. Find a way to connect to that person, let them know, if you come out and vote for me, I can win. And we can either flip the seat or keep the seat. But when you just sit back and you think you're going to be able to do everything through social media,
Oh, Rob,
you know,
Lord have mercy.
it's just not going to work. Listen,
It's not.
we beat Representative Placencia and her team, which I was part of. We beat a 3-term representative.
Mm-hmm.
That just doesn't happen. You have, if you're a 3-term legislator, you have established a base that should come out and vote for you. But when you don't get nothing done and you don't bring back any money, I mean, your universities where you have your young voters, they're not going to tell or encourage people, I should say, to go out and vote for this person. They're not. And we're not getting. We need these appropriation funds coming in from the state. We need the support of our state legislators, and making laws. When you're writing bills about marijuana, and not one but two, that is okay. If you're gonna write one, because of whatever the current situation is, but you need to write two. It's like, wait a minute, it's you couldn't fit it all in one.
Right.
So there are some state representatives in our local area that haven't gotten any bills passed, haven't brought any money back to this community, and our voters need to start looking at this, because Orange County shouldn't be left out in the cold. We've got
Right.
the largest university, and I think in the country, not just the state.
Mhm.
And we've got a lot of great things happening here. I mean, obviously we're the vacation capital of the world, and
Yes.
so there's a lot of responsibilities here, and you can see where a lot of these organizations that have their PACs, who they support. So, it's one of these educating the voters and getting them to understand that, we have a responsibility to our children and education, and we just got to do a better job for sure
I
across the
agree
board.
with you. I agree with you. Personalities go so far. You can be very popular on social media, at rallies, at meet and greets and things like that. Hurrah, 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 and gin up a lot of excitement. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's what a elected is bringing back to their community. And Orange County is missing out on a lot. And not only missing out on a lot, but also being preempted from doing some of the things that they want to do. And I, first of all, in my honest opinion, polls don't mean anything. I've always said that the only one that matters the most is the one on election day. And time again, whether I'm talking to a potential donor or to someone who's interested in supporting the campaign, or even the candidate themselves, say, well, what is the poll saying? It's like, we're losing. Everyone is losing. And like you said, Rob, create that
Mhm.
relationship with the voter. Go to the voter and advocate for your campaign, advocate for yourself, advocate for the community, and ask that voter for their vote. Earn that vote
Yeah.
and go to where the voters are.
Yeah, I
The
had
front page.
recently had a meeting with a bunch of pollsters, and
Oh,
and they
geez.
and they gave me their numbers, and me being me, I told them you're wrong. Like, well, where are you getting your numbers from? I go, I'm getting it from the the state election site. Where are you getting your numbers from? I'm going right to the state. I see registered voters. I see likely voters. I see the trend that you have in your, and I sent them the link. This is your historical data. Every 8 years, this is the percentages of how many people come out and vote. Uh, you know, I go, this polling doesn't match any of these numbers. So it was we left the meeting. They were not happy with me. So,
And we're
but
not in
numbers
this
don't.
business to make people happy. We're in this business to
Right.
get people elected.
I just
And
tell the truth.
sometimes,
Look at. Yep.
thank you, tell the truth.
I tell the candidates all the time. Listen, and I've had some that got very upset with me. I'm like,
Oh,
the
sure.
numbers do not support you winning in this election. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
You know, there's either way too many Democrats or there's way too many Republicans. The NPAs don't vote. I'm looking at a couple of races. I mean, NPA on this cycle, 12, 13% come out and vote. I'm like, don't bank on the NPAs. I mean, you
Right.
can't. And then it's even harder because they're so low because you don't know who those 12 or 13% are. I mean, you really have
Get,
to,
get an idea.
you can really got to, now you're getting into what teachers call rigor. You're digging down deep to find those voters, and
Right.
yeah, and we know how to do it. But your typical um, candidate it would struggle to figure out how it's done. So, but
That's another thing about candidates themselves. I'm finding that a lot of candidates, cycle after cycle, come into this with a lot of inspiration and ambition. However, don't understand what you just said, the mechanics, the numbers of
mm,
campaigning. And because you may have
yeah,
a nice personality or a fancy title, or this particular organization you've been involved in and say, hey, you should run, putting it all together into an effective strategy, candidates are missing that. And sometimes they get in their own best way.
yeah. I tell them first. Are you willing to work? I mean, well, first I ask them, do you want to win? And they think I'm crazy because I meet a lot of candidates that just want their name on the ballot. And then
Mhm.
then I ask them, do you know how to win? And usually that's where the tire hits the mud, and they start trying to tell me how, and I'm like, well, what do your numbers look like? And then that's when it's pretty much over.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, let's take a look at the numbers first. I mean, if the numbers don't support a path to win, then I wouldn't invest the money. I go, because people think this is all like social media and pictures and oh, it's no. You want to go and do a grassroots campaign in the state of Florida in the month of June, July, August, and September. You better be prepared to lose about 25 pounds of sweat, because
Darn
that's what
right.
I lost. I ran.
That's right.
I was the only non-incumbent Republican during COVID 2020
Yes.
that qualified by petition, and I had people all the way up to Tallahassee was in shock that I was able to do that. It takes a lot of hard work, and but you look good at the end of it, whether you win or lose, because you lose 25 pounds. Let
Yeah,
me
a
tell you.
couple of pounds, nice tan. Oh, I
Yeah.
hear you. I agree. I agree with you. Social media has a place, and when I sit down and talk to a candidate about the structure of a campaign and the purpose and the utility and value of social media, canvassing, so forth and so on, I let them know these are the numbers. These are the people who are actually engaged on this particular platform, and that's
Mhm.
globally. Now, let's look at it district wide, and I'd let people understand that you may think Facebook has a billion, use daily users, but those billion daily users are not in your district. They're not all in your
Yeah.
district. Very small percentage of people actually engage in social media on the regular basis.
Yeah.
Sure, they get their information from different sources on social media, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, et cetera, but that's just a very small piece.
Yeah.
And we both agree
Yeah.
you have to
I
have a
would.
much
Yeah.
better strategy of
Yeah.
engagement.
Now, since streaming came about right after COVID,
Yeah,
I have I haven't really watched the news because I know how to do my homework and pull up a candidate and look at their website and their
right. We're jaded.
yeah. And so since all of this has gone on with President Biden and the debate, I have started tuning back in, and I will go to MSNBC and I'll listen, and then I'll go to CNN and I'll listen, and then I'll go to Fox and I'll listen. And it's just why I stopped watching the news. And I would encourage others: listen, you want to get three different stories, go to three different channels, and they're going to tell you, three different things. At but at the end of the day, everybody thinks there was, I think it was up to 35 congressmen, women that were telling Biden to get out of the race. You're hurting the party,
Cool.
and
Right.
and then there was the media was pushing for it big time.
Yeah.
His family was even kind of, and he's saying no to everybody. And at the end of the day, see, you can go 3 minutes without air, and you can go 3 days without water, and you can go 30 days without food. But when you're running a campaign, you can't go 3 seconds without money. And
That's
his
right.
donors shut it down, and all of a
Yes, they
sudden,
did.
on Sunday, he's out. And they were
Yeah.
out. The media's like they've been for 3 weeks telling him to get out of the race. And all of a sudden, Sunday comes, and they're all shocked he dropped out of the race. I'm like,
Exactly. After saying,
we've
48
been
hours
telling him for three
before,
weeks to get
I'm
out.
staying in. You know, it was a
Yeah,
shock. And yeah, 20% of his donors were just left a conference call when the Biden campaign's like, hey, we're going in this direction, blah, blah, blah. We're still in the race. And that's not what they wanted to hear after the debate. 20% of them dropped off. And
oh yeah.
so, and that's unfortunate for Joe Biden. I'm going to talk about that in another David Washington podcast about, with friends like these, who needs enemies. However,
Oh, we froze. Oh,
uh-oh, there you go. Are you back? So, it's,
yeah,
it's a very strange time right now. I'll just leave it at that in politics where it's unique to this
yeah.
particular generation and
And
this
these are
particular
these
time.
are the things that are going to be said. His donors, his family, they probably have the list that wanted him out. Look, this is why the 25th Amendment would have avoided all of this. I mean,
Mhm.
and they could have made her out to be a hero, saving the party, doing what she was, basically, everybody's saying she hasn't done anything. Well, she's supposed to take over for the president, and if he's, incapacitated, that's the whole role of your VP.
True.
And if she's giving other things to do, which they're already saying she was supposed to fix the wall, and we talked
Exactly.
about the states that when we first started talking about Biden and Trump, I came out and said, listen, this is all going to come down to Michigan. Whoever wins Michigan will win this. When it
Okay.
was and sure enough, right after the first debate, they were, they had a town hall, or you know, uh, what do they call them? I'm drawing a blank. The
A forum.
panel
A forum.
forum.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like about a dozen people from Michigan and what they thought. And some
Correct.
people were going to
Yeah.
vote for Trump. Some people
A
voted
focus
for
group.
Biden. A focus group. Thank you. And and some were still undecided. Some were disappointed about some of the comments that were made. And so, but it went right to Michigan. I said it. Look, with the economy the way it is, Michigan being one of the biggest places still left in the country that we make something.
Correct.
I knew Michigan was going to be a big factor. Now that's all changed but now Arizona is going to be big, and where
Yes.
all the immigrants, they're saying 8 million immigrants have crossed the borders down there. So, again, it's the media. Who knows? I mean, you hear one number on CNN, you hear another number on Fox, you hear another. Who's counting?
Right.
Somebody down there with a pitch clicker that they use to watch how many pitches a little league pitcher throws now. It's like, really? So who knows? I mean, there could be 100,000. There could be 10 million, 20 million. We don't know. But all we know is this: there's a process that we should be allowing people to come into this country, and it's definitely not being enforced. And and we're not looking at the other border. You hear people that tell me, that I've had in the school system, because we don't call anybody, but they'll fly to Canada and they'll come over the Canadian border. It's much easier, and it's it's safer. They got bridges. I'm like, okay. I mean, I knocked on the door last week out canvassing, and it was a rental. So the guy had just moved there, and he says, "No, I'm not here legally. I can't vote." I was like, "Yeah, I really wouldn't be telling."
I have come across, yes.
And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I'm not. What am I gonna? It's like, so I saved the door hanger. All right, so but they exist, and at the end of the day, they're here. So they're in the school systems. And so it's like, I mean, I've had parents, no, don't send them to the ER. They get hurt at one time when I was a dean, and because they're afraid they're going to call ICE on them. And I'm like, look, as a school system, we'll call DCF if there's,
correct.
But, it's, we don't do that. And so,
to speak to the immigration issue, Vice President Harris was tasked by President Biden.
Oh, we're going to hear about
it. To be the border czar. So, in seeing how former President Trump has talked about that, I mean, when the attempted assassination occurred, he was talking about immigration at that time. Throughout the debate, he was going back to that time and time again about immigration. So we know this is something that this is a particular issue that the Trump campaign will challenge Vice President Harris on for the rest of this cycle, and that's a tough place for the Democrats.
Well, knowing his personality, I mean, you'll hear it. I mean, and if they do debate, you're going to hear the B team is here, and this is his personality. Well, yeah, I mean,
you're right.
And her favorables are lower than Biden's, which weren't great at the time. And that's again, and it goes back at the end of the day. Okay, whatever party you're with, you want to be able to pay your bills. You want to pay the rent. You want to pay the mortgage. You want to be able to fill your tank so you can get to work to do that.
Thank you.
But what's discouraging is at the end of the week or the month and you've paid all the bills, there's nothing left, and you're like, wait a minute, we live in America, we're supposed to be, American opportunity. If this is the American opportunity, then, we need to make some major changes.
Right.
And, so what those look like, only time will tell, but we got to stop being proactive. That is one thing for sure.
Mm.
You know,
Okay.
the Highway Bills Act was, you know, passed in like 1954, and under Eisenhower.
Okay.
These bridges are you know, we've seen what's going on,
Woo.
and it's like people are like, oh, there's a bridge. Well, yeah, you know, we passed this bill in the 1950s during Happy Days, and it's like that was like some 70 years ago. Might be time to start looking at rebuilding bridges and some of our infrastructure. It's just
Well, Rob, wasn't the infrastructure bill that the bipartisan bill that President Biden, you know, holds up as a great example
yeah.
accomplishment of his presidency? Is wasn't that supposed to start addressing these particular infrastructure issues?
You said the key word, supposed to. You know, have you seen anything? Have you?
And I knew the answer to my question, and I haven't seen, you know, the big billboards saying this infrastructure project brought to you by funding from the Biden administration.
And
I
this is
used to see
why
it.
the
I don't
American
see it.
people stop trusting our government. You know, you know the money starts getting doled out and then filtered down, and it just okay. We we just we have to have better oversight. We have to have people that can get the job done, and because there's people out there that want to work, you know, and at the end of the day, then we've got a generation of people that don't want to work that you can't. I mean we can't. We still have a teacher shortage,
Right.
and I mean a lot of that's because of the pay. It's still the lowest paying profession with a 4-year degree in America, which is sad because teachers create all of these type of workers from what the nurses and firefighters, police officers, all our first responders, other teachers, which we're not seeing at all. Every teacher that has children, they tell them, listen, I'll pay for your college, I'll help you get through college, as long as you're not a teacher.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. We have a Facebook page with about 5,900 mostly teachers on there, and we see the comments all the time. But and we've done polls. Would you encourage your other students or your children or your family members to become teachers? And they all, oh no, it's overwhelmingly never, never. Few, I mean, I'm talking less than 5% would say yes. No. So people like me, I got a year left. I could retire if I want. I mean, even the
Okay.
state has recognized this, because you used to be able to defer your retirement up to 5 years. They've upped
Okay.
that to 8 years now
Hmm.
because they know that they have to do something. That. And the governor has come back and he's starting to put some money in the last 5 years. It's over $4 billion has been put into education, but they're going to have one cycle where, I mean, it's a big splash. And to me, I think in order to fix the whole education pay system and benefit system, the teachers won't like this, the union won't like this, but at the end of the day, they've already amended the class size amendment, and that's a mouthful. But they take the average, and this is what they put in these classrooms. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was a time when you'd get 30, 35 kids in a classroom, and it was tough to handle. But the class size amendment was sold to the taxpayers and the voters that it was going to alleviate behaviors and workload, and it hasn't. And the state budget's
Wow.
$3 billion, $3 billion a year into this one program that isn't really being effective. So let the voters decide.
Okay.
Get rid of it, put the $3 billion into the general budget for pay raises. You're looking at going from 50th in the nation in pay to 25th.
That's a big difference.
One thing. That's all you do is one thing. And I wouldn't mind every tax we ever put out there for kids passes. Our half cent
Of
sales tax
course.
is coming up to keep
That's
building
correct.
schools and
Right.
improve it. And, I've made some comments that part of that should be used for teacher salaries. If we're not going to do something else, we're building all these beautiful schools, then we can't put teachers in them. Just makes
Hmm.
sense. You use some of that money, which there's a lot of it, to put towards teacher salaries. Well, I got a call, that they're worried that, it won't pass at all, period. And so, I've kind of down, I'd rather see the 3 billion put into the budget, and it
Okay.
will happen long after I'm retired. But at some
Okay.
point, we've spent over $50 billion on this amendment, and I'm like, okay, I don't see the test scores
So
haven't
cool.
improved. Nothing's improved. So what are we
Right.
doing? You want improvement? Pay a teacher a good wage. Get them in the middle of the country,
Thank
and
you.
what? And yet we're still. I mean, overall, we're number one. Oh, we're number one in academics in the country. I think
Okay.
ninth overall. Utah was number one overall. Um, but we're number one in academics, which is the most important part. And that was by the the NEA, the National Education Association, came up with that.
Which
So,
it's important.
I mean, you're saying, okay, well, if we're getting that for our money, it's kind of like the Tampa Bay baseball team, the lowest payroll, and if not, I don't think I have any payroll with revenue sharing now in baseball, and they've gone to the World Series a few times. It's like, so a
Sure.
lot of people are starting to model their payrolls after some of these programs, but so
It's
they're getting their money's worth, and but that would be how to fix
right.
the teacher pay.
Is it Randy Weingarten, the who leads the NEA, or am I thinking of
No,
the
NEA is
teachers?
Andrew Spar.
Okay, thank you.
No, FEA.
I think of
FEA.
teachers union.
Yeah,
Okay.
FEA is Andrew Spar. He's the president of Governor DeSantis's fan club, and
Okay.
hopefully he'll see that. So,
Oh,
but and that's what again. At some point, it's been 20, almost 30 years that the Republicans took the speakership in the
yeah,
House, and I tell them the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So, and I've
correct.
told this to the legislative uh, liaison for FEA. But, at some point, you guys need to figure out. You got to work with the Republicans and find some compromises here, and find some areas that will help the teachers, because what you're doing right now obviously isn't working, and
Right.
and that's where I would start. I would definitely look at this class size amendment, because now it's the class size amendment average, and see how much more a teacher could make. And I've done this. I've polled teachers. If you had to have 3, 4, 5 more students in your class, but you got paid $20,000 more a year, would you do it?
Mm,
Overwhelmingly, yes. Where do I sign up? Are you kidding?
right.
I mean, it's like, that's just a no-brainer. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, there you go. Just
Mm.
let's do it.
We're coming up to an hour, and I don't want to keep your time. However, speaking of amendments, we touched on marijuana, Amendment
Mm-hmm.
3, but the
Yep.
big one that both Democrats and Republicans are expecting a great turnout for is Amendment 4,
Right.
uh, the abortion ballot initiative.
Right.
Uh, in your opinion, where is Florida at as far as this amendment getting the 60% vote difference of either passing or not?
Yeah. See, I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question, because sadly, some 40 years ago, my first son passed away. And
Okay,
I know, even as a male, the to this day, the devastating feeling of losing a child. And now I know this is a deeper issue. This is, a woman's right to her body or whatever.
sure.
But I have yet to meet anybody that would have been okay if their mother had aborted them, you know,
Oh,
and
no, yeah.
and that's the most powerful question you could ask somebody,
Right.
um, and it, so yes, there's a lot of other, once the child's born, we have to feed the child, we have to care for the child, the health of the child. My grandson is going in for brain surgery at the end of the month, and so my family is under a lot of stress right now, and although doctors assure us that everything should be smooth, but anytime you go under anesthesia,
Always.
you're 2.5 years old and you're having brain surgery, it's very scary. I mean, at the end of the day, so I'm probably the wrong person. I mean, I don't personally believe in it. Um, I everybody, we've heard all the different stories of on both sides of it, and it's been a very controversial thing, and I mean, and I know that uh, even see, I'm not the right person to ask for this. It's just
And that's
so
fine. That's fine.
I mean, I'll publicly tell you right now. I'm not voting. I'll vote no.
Right.
Um, and
I I know that Ron DeSantis is his Florida Freedom PAC is actively engaged in a campaign to let Floridians know the other side of the coin.
mm,
I know there's a lot of money behind the efforts to pass this amendment. There are challenges to the language, defining viability.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
challenges to
yeah.
the financial impact study. So
What I
this.
can tell you from a personal, I was there when the Supreme Court. I was in Tallahassee, I should say,
Mhm.
when the Supreme Court ruled on this, and
Okay.
you would have thought there would have been hundreds of thousands of protesters up there, and there was less than 100. There was nobody there. So,
Mhm.
with the amount of birth control and on the market now, and the amount of education that we have provided over the last 50 years, it's it's yeah, and I hate, how we feel about polling, but the polls are showing that people are. This isn't as big of an issue as some of our local progressive Democrats are making out to be, a
Yeah.
statewide, or
Okay.
and so um, I could be wrong, but I don't. Not one of those times where I wish I was wrong, because
Right.
again, I just I'm a school teacher. I taught first and second grade, and let me tell you, next to seeing my children being born, the greatest experience I've had with children is watching them learn how to read for the first time, reading that
Ah,
first sentence, reading that
yes.
first. Oh man, let me tell you. And when I taught first grade in Orange County, which is the fourth largest district in the state, there was only like 9 or 10 male first grade teachers. It was just,
Hmm.
it just wasn't a grade that men taught in. And I remember at a faculty meeting talking like this and telling people, I was so excited, and that it was my first year teaching, and my students were starting to read and sharing this with them. And I had a room full of, I'll just say, female teachers looking at me like, "Is he okay? Is he crazy?" And I was like, "Listen, you know, um, it's what I was meant to do, is be a teacher. I've always said
All
it,
right.
and you got
Excellent.
to be a special kind of person to do it today, because
I taught English as a foreign language in Thailand back in the early '90s, and it's a rewarding
yeah,
profession, but it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Rob,
yeah.
in closing, do you have any final words for this particular conversation?
Well, again, to your everyday voter, please do your homework. What? Senator Stewart has done up in Tallahassee, reaching across the aisle, is how it's supposed to be. Right after the assassination, we saw this sense like, hey, we're finally gonna bridge this divide and start working together, and it didn't last long, unfortunately. And this is what needs to stop. We're not going to grow as a country, and and we live in the greatest country in the world. Although we need to start building more things instead of getting things from other countries. So when and by no means I want that to be clear, because am I endorsing or supporting Senator Stewart? I'm just using her as an example. But
Sure.
We just need to get educated. I mean, we've got some of the greatest schools in Orange County. We've got some of the greatest school teachers, and everybody's freaking out about what is being taught in our schools. Listen, I had students in 7th and 8th grade couldn't multiply. We got bigger problems than worrying about some of the things that they're making political issues. You got to go back. I mean, we have to do a better job with our basic skills and teaching these standards. At the end of the day, there's a candidate in District 4 for school board, and he's talking about bringing the literacy rate up to 60%. People are criticizing him. I'm like, what? I'm like, that's a good thing,
Yeah.
and he doesn't make it very clear how he's going to get there. So everybody's interpreting, oh, you're giving me more work. Well, yeah, that's the kind of work that you want to do. I mean, our students need to read. Our students need to be able to do math,
Yes.
And then at the end of the day, as a state, as a district, we need to start creating more than one path. Everybody doesn't want to or need to go to college. We need vocational programs, and we need them earlier, because this is why these 6th, 7th, 8th graders go, it's such a bridge of getting in trouble. And it's because they're looking, and we got to show them, hey, if you do this math, you can become a nurse. If you do this math, you can become a welder. There are paths that and purpose that you can instill in a young student.
Yes.
At the middle school age, because we used to call it junior high school, and no longer do we call it that. But it's secondary school. And when you look at the legislation, the way it's written, it separates, primary and secondary. And secondary starts in 6th grade. And I tell all these students, be careful of your choices, because now they're keeping your records of your educational career starting in 6th grade, because that's when secondary starts.
Wow.
So
I did not know that.
Yeah. So it's going to be a very interesting political season. I don't think any legal issues are going to, once the convention hits. And so I think they need to focus on who the better candidate is, who's better for the country right now, and over the next 4 years. I think locally, the same issue, especially in Orange County. We have seemed to continue to push this progressive movement, and I got a lot of Democrats that are friends of mine, and it doesn't have to be so progressive. It can be productive instead. Let's change
that. Productive
and be proactive. Find things and address them before, it always seems like we wait till the bridges fall down, and then we want to fix them. So let's be proactive, productive with our communities instead of so progressive. It's just not something that people are interested in.
Okay. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we could have went another hour, huh?
Hey, we could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got to do this again. We have to do this again.
I would love to be back
This
on.
was very productive. I really appreciate
it. There's so many topics that we could address still. I mean, it's
exactly.
It's some trying times, and and as adults, it's not about us. I remember when I ran, one of the key things that I got across to a lot of voters was none of the candidates are talking about our children, and this is who you should be voting for, the candidate that is going to address your child, not you. I'm like, we've lived our life. The average person, the average male is 78 years old, and so, it is what it is.
Good point.
But my grandson is 2 years old, and he's got his whole life ahead of him. And if we don't do a better job of making sure that is viable, secure, then we failed. We failed as a government. We failed as a society, and we're failing by not speaking up as parents and grandparents.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And if we took a closer examination of our responsibility as parents to our children, our grandchildren, so forth and so on, I think that our policies would change if we focus on empowering our families, to encourage them to be civically engaged. Our policies, like you said, will be more future focused than the here and now. So,
yeah,
thank you,
because I could
Rob.
go on a whole nother segment on preparing your child for kindergarten or first grade. We're planning on getting my grandson a desk, so he knows how to sit in a desk before he gets to kindergarten, because they run around all day, they're playing all day, they're not, and
I remember doing something similar with my 3 boys. I agree.
yeah.
You,
And
you
listen,
taught them early.
the parents that are watching this, they have those YouTube videos, that Schoolhouse Rock and singing to the ABCs, and you're and adding and multiplying. They still out there.
Yes, they
Utilize
are.
them.
Yep.
Utilize them
And sit with your child and engage with those type of appropriate videos.
yeah. Look, I'm even willing to compromise if you as I know, both parents have to work, but if they're gonna watch TikTok and some of the things, that put them on YouTube and have them sit at the kitchen table while you're cooking, and watch those type of videos that are educational. It helps the teacher, especially those kindergarten teachers. The stories I'm hearing, that these children are coming to school and they're not prepared to sit and listen and behave and know how to walk in a line, and there's a lot of small things that needs to be brought to their attention.
We'll save that for another day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob. I really appreciate
it.
We're going to do this again. And to our listeners and our viewers, I hope you enjoyed this. And please, come back, get some more valuable information and insight from Rob. It was great. And, like, share, and of course, what we like the most, what we want the most, are your comments. We love engaging with you, our community, and let us know. Again, bring your facts, not your feelings, and let's have a respectful conversation. This is the David Washington Show. Rob, thank you again.
Thanks.
Take care.